Hey there, guys. Uh, Welcome to World History B online. Uh, this is my first crack at trying to record something on video for this class. I've been having all kinds of difficulties with it too. I was going to try to use my Chromebook tonight to record it, and YouTube was basically saying I needed 24 hours. I had a 24-hour waiting time before they actually would approve my access to sharing videos. So, anyways, I'm going to try this off my phone right now, and then I'm going to see if I can upload the video from my phone to YouTube and see if I can make it work that way. Um, I hope everything is going well for you guys out there. I know these are crazy times. I was never expecting us to be out of school for this long, and I don't know what's going to happen going ahead. We'll just have to make do with whatever happens. If you guys can remember back to where we left off, we were in chapter 15. We had gone through the first four sections. Section 1 was on new imperialism. It just kind of gave us a definition of what imperialism was. If you remember back to, they said that there were four different ways that a European country would go in and take something over. One was direct rule. The second was indirect rule. The third was a protectorate. And the fourth was a sphere of influence. So I don't know if that's ringing any bells for everybody of what those were. Remember, direct meant that they sent like their full forces in, of officials and everything, and took it directly over. France did that quite a bit. Indirect was where the country sent in some people, but they didn't get in there as much. And we said that the British like to do that. Protectorate was where they kind of just sent in advisors and kind of just gave them recommendations of what they should do, and they were supposed to listen. And then spheres of influence is what's going to come into play today with today's topic, which is going to be China. The Europeans went in basically and carved it up into like sections that they kind of controlled economically. Those were the spheres of influence. So, anyways, what I thought we would do, the school is shut down, so I cannot get into my classroom at all. I can't get any of my resources. All I really have right now is I have my textbook that I've used over the years, and I've got our website online that you guys have access to. So I'm going to just try to use those two things for right now and go with that. So I had sent out an email to everybody asking for you to read pages 615 to 619. So that's where I'm going to start off today. I'm looking at page 615. Oh, by the way, I was going to introduce you to somebody here. This is my cat Cleo. Hey, say hi, Cleo. She always usually sits right by me, pretty friendly. My dog Molly is here too, but she's in her crate right now. If I had her out and about, she'd be barking and going crazy and stuff on me. So right now I'm just going to leave her in there while we go through and do this lesson. So again, if you have your book, it'd be really, really handy if you have it out right now and look through it with me as I'm kind of going through some of this stuff. If you look at page 615, it talks about China and the West. And they got a picture up in the right corner of page 615. And do you guys ever remember me talking about the Opium War? The Opium Wars? Remember that the British went to China and were trying to trade them opium. And they got the Chinese very, very addicted to the opium to the point where the Chinese government basically just outlawed it, restricted it. They went as far as even to install the death penalty for anybody that was caught with it or trading it. So they wanted it gone because their people were getting addicted. The British obviously were making money off of it, so they weren't going to stop, and so they went to war over this. And if you remember how they fought, do you remember the story behind that? The British had gone through the Industrial Revolution, so they showed up with their guns and cannons and fancy ships. The Chinese had shut themselves off for years, and they were not prepared to fight the British. And so they were sending out these burning rafts at the British ships. I cracked all kinds of jokes about that in class before. You hopefully you remember that. But yeah, they sent back burning rafts at the British ships, and as you can imagine, the Chinese got destroyed in that war. Getting back to page 615, just going through, I'm not going to go through and read it with you. I was hoping that everybody had a chance to read it. If you look at the opening paragraphs there, they talk about the fact that Chinese early on had a trade surplus. They were trading more to the outside world. They didn't really want anything that the British had outside of like gold and silver or any of the other European countries. And then as time goes on, it talks about the Opium War, which I just mentioned. If you flip it over to page 616, they talk about what happened at the end of that Opium War. So the Chinese lost. They were forced to agree to a treaty. If you see on page 616, it says the Treaty of Nanjing. And look what that treaty did. It said that Britain would receive a huge indemnity, which is basically money for the winning side that the losing side had to pay. They got extraterritoriality, which I mentioned that before we were done with school. Remember, that's where you get to get tried in your home courts. So like if I'm a British person and I go to China and I do something wrong, like I kill somebody, they arrest me, but they send me back to Britain to get tried there. And as I kind of said before, as you can imagine, how many people do you think really got punished under that setup? The Chinese also lost Hong Kong. The British gained access to Hong Kong, and they'd hold on to it all the way to like 1997. So, and this basically just set like a trend going forward that China was going to start getting taken advantage of by the European powers going forward. Now, if you look at 616 on the right-hand side of the page, they talk about the Qing dynasty, Qing. It was weakening, it was declining, and there's all kinds of reasons if you went through and did the reading there of why. Flooding, population explosion, corruption, all those things were going on. In 616 too, they talk about the Taiping Rebellion. Have you ever heard of that before? It was pretty big in Chinese history. It went on for 15 years. And basically, a lot of the people were angry with the government. They were angry with foreigners taking advantage of them. And they had this huge rebellion, 15 years. And when everything was said and done, 20 million people died. It's just shocking to me that we don't really cover that much. You don't hear about it all that often in history. And yet 20 million people died during this rebellion. Just kind of crazy. If you look on 617, they've got a map at the top. Imperialism in China. Those colored sections on the map are basically spheres of influence. Spheres of influence. Look at the key there. The British were involved, the French, Germans, Russians were all involved, the Japanese. They have a question under the map. Western powers carved out spheres of influence throughout China. What area was occupied by Japan beginning in, it should say, 1905? Do you know the answer to that question? There's actually two areas on that map that were controlled by Japan. Yes, the answers are Korea and Taiwan. Korea and Taiwan. So the reform efforts in China, on 617, they basically just say that after they were getting beaten by the Europeans, they started to make reforms. Molly, stop. They were starting to make reforms. Some people wanted to reform, though, and some people didn't. For instance, there was this Empress, Cixi, who was conservative and didn't want changes to take place. But anyways, some changes were made. They did make some reforms. They tried to modernize a little bit. Sino-Japanese War in 617. Japan is going to fight China in 1894. And as you can imagine, given the track record here of what's going on with China, the fact they just were getting beaten up by the Europeans, the Japanese basically went in and beat them too. And again, it was just another sign that China was behind at this point. They mentioned in the reading, if you did it, that at the peace, when they signed the agreement to stop the fighting at the end of that war, the Japanese showed up like in Western-style clothing, like suits and everything, whereas the Chinese showed up in their traditional robes. And again, it was just a way to show you again that the Chinese were kind of lagging behind in the times. If you flip it over to 618, Molly, stop. If you flip it over to 618, they've got a cartoon there at the top. We'll talk about that in a second. When all those European countries went in and started carving China up into those spheres of influence, the United States didn't get in there right away. We were kind of like behind. And since we hadn't gone in there and carved anything up for ourselves, we didn't think it was fair that these other guys, these other Europeans had. So we came up with a new plan, a new policy. And if I was in class right now, I would go over and I would purposely like open the door and have it shut, and I would do it like 5 or 6 times in a row to just see if we could do charades for you to get the idea down of what it was. It was the open door policy. Basically, we said that no matter who it is, everyone should have equal access to trade in China. You shouldn't be able to have just one little carved up section for your individual country. Now, if I would have been one of the other European countries who had already gone in and carved up a sphere of influence, I would have been pretty angry about this. But the British went along with us, and everybody was scared of their navy, so we kind of got away with it. They talk about this 100 days of reform. We say that it basically says in the reading that they did go through this process of like trying to modernize and modernize quickly in China. But again, there was some that wanted to and some that didn't. The conservatives didn't want to, and the more modern people did. The fall of the Qing. If you look at the bottom of 618, there was something famous called the Boxer Uprising or the Boxer Rebellion. The Japanese, or the Chinese, I should say, the Chinese were very upset with all the foreigners being in China and everything that they were doing. So they had this secret society called the Righteous Harmonious Fist. Now, when Westerners watched these guys, when they were doing like their training and stuff, they would warm up doing these martial arts. It made it look like they were boxing. So Westerners called them the Boxers. So they had this Boxer Uprising, Boxer Rebellion, and basically these Chinese went out and just like started to basically kill a lot of foreigners that had come into China. Well, as you can imagine, the foreigners, the Europeans, were very angry about this in the United States, and they put together a force to go back in and basically retaliate. And the Boxer Uprising is going to be put down. And again, just another sign that China was kind of, again, behind the times. If you look at that cartoon on the top of 618, it's got 3 dogs there, and it says the dogs represent the United States, Japan, and Britain. They guard the open door that says China trade. Which country opened the door? If you're looking at that cartoon, can you figure out which one would have opened it? It looks to me that Uncle Sam, that dog, is the closest to the door. So it seems like the one closest to the door probably was the one that guided it open. And so since it was our idea, the open door policy, that was what the answer was supposed to be. If you look at that image on the bottom of 618, the Chinese rebels, nicknamed Boxers, wanted to drive out the foreigners from their country. Again, that's just showing you the Boxer Rebellion. Now, over the last page of this section on 619, the consequences of the uprising. Basically, this was a sign now to all the conservatives in China that they did have to modernize. I mean, they're getting beaten time and time again. They've got to do something. They've got to try to westernize, modernize, do something to get better going forward. So they do. The last couple little sections there on 619, they talk about the growth of Chinese nationalism. They're going to turn into a republic for a short period of time. And there's a certain guy that led the way to this. His picture is on the right side of 619. I never refer to him by the name the book gives him. I never call him that. They call him Sun Yishan. I don't call him that. I'm going to call him what the other name for him is, Dr. Sun Yat-sen. So that guy there with the mustache, that's Dr. Sun Yat-sen. He's the one that's going to lead China to having a republic, where they actually vote for their elected officials. It's not going to last long, but he's going to be the one to do it. He had this famous 3 principles of the people, and it says the first principle was nationalism, to be proud of your country. The second one was democracy, that people should be able to vote. And the third was a livelihood, that all Chinese citizens should have the right to work. So those were his ideas. And again, if you look at the very last couple of paragraphs, the Republic is born. Dr. Sun Yat-sen is going to rush back to China. He actually was in the United States at the time that all this stuff happened. The Qing dynasty collapsed, and China's going to have this republic. He rushes back. He's going to be sworn in as president only for a year. And they're still going to have a lot of problems going forward for China. So, that was section 15.5. I'm looking at my phone here. It looks like it took about 14 minutes to get through that. Hopefully that helped somewhat to go along with the reading. And what I've done for you is I've gone onto the Pearson website, and I've set up new classes for us for the 3rd try. You all are logged in as a class. The information again, I don't know if this is going to show up very well on here. If that comes out backwards or if that wasn't long enough, I'll just tell you again, the book website is going to be www.pearsonrealize, that's Pearson, realize, REALIZE.com. Your login is going to be your school email. except for Cassidy McGuire. Cassidy, you're going to have to use your full name, last full name, first full name. Everybody else is your school actual email. Password is going to be Caro with a capital C, 48723. So you're going to go to the book website, you're going to log in. Once you get officially logged in, and if you've never used it before, I think there was one person, I think Jenna Topham, I think it was the only one that hasn't gotten on there or used the site before. Everybody else should have used it at least once before. Once you get on there, log in, you're going to click class, or classes in red, and then you'll see the 2020 whatever hour that you're in, third trimester World History B class. I assigned you the 15.5 online quiz. It's going to be set up so that it's going to be due by midnight tonight, and basically all you have to do then is get on there at some point today after you've watched this video and after you've read the section and take that quiz. So it's 5 questions, 5 points. Just go on there tonight, and then tomorrow when I show you this next video, I will do a shout out to anybody in any of the 3 classes that got 5 out of 5. So that'll give you something to strive for anyway, and you can use your book while you take it. Also for tomorrow, I would like you to read section 15.6, which is going to be on Japan, and the pages for that are going to be 620 to 6 through 624. So basically that's what I'm going to be doing all week and the weeks going forward. Whenever we're not in school, I'm going to do a section a day. I'll do a shout out to the people that got perfect scores on the previous day's online quiz, and then I'll cover the section that you were supposed to have read for that day. And maybe I'll throw some fun things in there too, just to kind of like liven it up a little bit so you're not just staring just at my face. If I had some candy, I'd be asking some questions and throwing candy out to you. I know some of you guys are big fans of that. I'm not going to name names, but I think Mr. Joslin in 5th hour, Mr. Phillips in 1st hour, and my mind's getting fuzzy here, and all the different people that I had in the different hours. It's been a while since we've been together. So anyways, I just want to wrap it up by saying I hope everybody's staying safe. I know this is kind of crazy, and I know this has kind of thrown a kink into everybody's plans for your senior year. I've never had anything happen like this to me or to the school before that I'm aware of. In the 21 years that I've been a teacher, we've never been out of school like this. So anyways, we'll make it through it. I just hope that you get something out of the class. So please just try to stay caught up with the readings and doing the online quizzes. And whenever I find out anything about school, whatever, I'll let you know, and I'll keep sharing the links for these videos. So anyways, stay safe, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Thanks.